Greetings, Otaku faithful. Thank you for joining me again this week. Once again, it's Larry Williams, OAW Commander-in-Chief, and I'm here to bring you all yet again another Discussion of the Week video segment right here on Otaku Assemble! Weekly, as always, I'm here to bring you the latest in this week's Discussion of the Week video segment. And this week's discussion topic comes from Mr. Ace and T, who writes, Discussion of the Week, the portrayal of men in the media and its effect on male culture. Do you think the portrayal of men in the media creates a male stereotype or puts pressure on men to behave a certain way? There is a lot of discussion on how women are shown in comics, video games, and movies, but not so much about men. Is there a reason for this? Is the meat-headed, uber-violent Marcus Phoenix just as bad a stereotype as the big-breasted dumb woman? Can you think of any other examples, both good and bad? Excellent topic. Now, I want to go ahead and begin this discussion with this. The issues pertaining to the portrayal of men and the portrayal of women are completely different. Let me repeat myself. The issues pertaining to the portrayal of men and the portrayal of women are completely different. There are some issues that both do share. There are. But for the majority, those two are completely different. They are two different topics. You cannot address all of the issues pertaining to those different portrayals properly. You cannot do that discussion justice by trying to put them together in the same boat. You cannot speak about these issues in the same vein because they are different. And I will go into further detail about the difference between those two later on in this video. But I want to make sure we're all on the same page when I say that. Once again, say it with me now. The issues pertaining to the portrayal of men and the portrayal of women in media are different. Can't talk about them both in the same boat. You can't speak about them in the same vein because they are different, and there are reasons for this, which I will address later on in this video. But to answer the first question, do you think the portrayal of men in the media creates a male stereotype or puts pressure on men to behave a certain way? Absolutely. I don't even think that can be argued at this point, because throughout mankind, throughout the history of humanity, there have been all these portrayals of either the strong man, which is the most common portrayal, and that goes back to classical ancient civilizations. When you look at the Epic of Gilgamesh, when you look at the Epic of Beowulf, when you look at the Iliad, the Odyssey, the Aeneid, when you look at all of Roman folklore, all these things, they all portray men in this very strong man, type of fashion. Going back to Greek mythology with Hercules and Achilles and Hector and Odysseus and all those type of things. And it wasn't until much later on that you started getting stories with more clever male protagonists. And I mean, even in classical literature, the clever characters were always these, sub-characters. They were always supporting characters, or they were always, of smaller status or smaller stature. And in many cultures, they were actually frowned upon. I mean, hell, just looking back at Norse mythology, Loki. What was Loki the god of? Mischief. He was a trickster, and he wasn't seen in the same fashion, and he didn't get as much praise, and he wasn't as much a favorite as Thor or Odin. Those characters were seen in a much more favored light than Loki was, and that goes back. I mean, even in Egyptian and African cultures, same thing, where the trickster isn't really favored. Hell, going to medieval Europe, you know, King Arthur, you know, that was the guy, you know, with Excalibur and the sword and the, you know, the armor, shining armor and the great sword, you know, the great phallic symbol, and, you know, the Knights of the Round Table on horseback, you know, that was, you know, who they idolized. But then who did, okay, let me put it to you like this. Who did the nobles despise, but the common man idolized? Robin Hood. Why? Because he used the longbow. He fought from a distance. He wore all green. He hid in the forest, in the trees. He used his mind to outwit, you know, the nobles and to outwit, you know, the sheriff of Nottingham and you know, and King John and all that jazz. You see what I'm saying? So the portrayals of these characters, they vary based off of time, based off of culture. You know, what does that culture value in the male model? And you know, this is actually going to kind of tie in with the next question, which is, you know, it kind of goes, you know, in kind of goes towards that whole idea of the male portrayal versus the female portrayal and the effect that it has on, you know, on their respective sexes. Because the common idea, the common concept, the common theory, if you will, about the portrayal of men is that it's not so much how we should be seen or how we should be portrayed or how we should act or how we should look. It's more so how we want to be portrayed, how we want to look, how we want to act. And that's the major difference. I think that's the key difference in the portrayal of men and the portrayal of women. Because, also consider the source. For the majority, who's writing these portrayal of men? Men. But who's writing the majority of the portrayal of women? Men. So that's the key difference in the portrayals of those respective sexes, because men writing men, it's different. It's how we want to be portrayed, how we want to be seen, how we want to look, how we want to act. You know, like Tyler Durden says in Fight Club, one of my favorite quotes. He says, "I dress like you dress, I fuck how you want to fuck, and I am free in every way that you are not." That right there is a commentary on men's portrayal in media as perpetrated and as created by men. Whereas with women often, they feel the pressure to live up to some of these portrayals of female characters in the media much more than men do. Why? Because men are creating those characters and are pushing the message that this is how women should act. This is how you should look. This is how you should behave. This is how you should carry yourself. And if you don't, this is what's going to happen to you. No man will ever want you. All that type of jazz. You see what I'm saying? That's the bullshit that often gets pushed on women. That is the biggest difference between female portrayal and men portrayal, because it's not the same for men portrayal. Now, granted, there are female authors and female creators who do the same thing, where they say, you know, okay, this is how a man should look. This is how a man should act, so on and so forth. And for the most part, and look, I'm not knocking, hey, I am not knocking the ladies. I am not doing that at all. But all I'm saying is this. A lot of times, from the female perspective, most of their quote-unquote portrayals of men are completely unrealistic and they're bullshit. Look at Stephanie Meyer's Twilight Saga for a clear-cut example of that. Because ladies, I'm here to tell you right here and now, that is fictitious bullshit to the degree. Okay? Men, real men. And when I say real men, I'm talking about men who, you know, take care of their fucking business, who go out and work for a living, who provide for their woman, who, you know, tend to their needs, who take care of their children, who are respective members of society. Those type of men, real fucking men, do not behave in that manner. Okay? Are we clear on that? Alright. But, you know, certain male characters, yeah. You know, let's bury the hatchet. Let's call an ace An ace and ace, a spade, a goose, a goose. Let's be real with ourselves. Now, everything I just said, that's not to say that these portrayal of men in media, that we do get pressured. We do. Okay? Let me make sure I make that clear. We do get pressured. It's just not in the same degree as it is with women. That's what I'm saying. With women, it's a much greater degree. With men, not so much, but it does happen with men. And shit, that's more men trying to push this idea of what a man should be, like I just did. You see what I did there? You see, well, Larry, you just did that. I know I just did that. And I'm going to do it fucking again, because I think this is, what I said earlier, I think that is how men should be. Okay? But, there are pressures that men do get. There are. I mean, hell, I'll give you a perfect example. Me growing up, African-American male in New Orleans, Louisiana, in the South, in the 90s and 2000s, all that fucking thug life bullshit, all these portrayal of, these rappers and shit and all these images, gangs and all that shit. Yeah, dog. Yeah, man, yeah, son. You gotta be like this, son. Yeah, son. You gotta talk like this, son. You hear me, Waldy? You gotta talk like, yeah, son. That's what I'm talking about. Yeah, that's my round right there. Yeah, we gonna go handle that shit, my Waldy. Yeah, that's how, yeah, dog, that's it. You see, that bullshit, the fucking, yeah, nigga, we gonna sag our pants. Yeah, nigga, all that shit. Yeah, that shit happens. And see, me, that shit didn't work with me. Yeah, I was the, I was the outcast, because I didn't fall in. I mean, fuck, just look at what I'm wearing now. I got a motherfucking Game of Thrones and Death Note ring, a fucking Godsmack wristband, a fucking Disturbed shirt, and of course, I wear my pants on my motherfucking waist. Ain't no sag in here. Nah, I don't fall into that bullshit. But yeah, so those type of pressures, that shit does happen. And the thing is, every culture has that type of image that they do try to push. Yeah, everyone does. So this shit does happen. But okay, I'll wrap up this question with this statement. There are a lot of good portrayals that do try to get pushed to men. There are a lot of good portrayals of men in various media that do try to get pushed to men. A lot of good ones. Hell, just off the top of my head, two that I try to abide by, that I try to live up to every day. Superman and Captain America. Two of the greatest comic book superheroes ever conceived, and all of their values and all their morals and everything that they stand for. That's a pretty good male image to try and live up to. That's a pretty good one. I think the problem comes into play when the negative images are the ones that make the most noise. They're the ones that have the least amount to offer, and they make the most noise. It goes back to that old saying, the empty wagon makes the most noise. And I think that's where the problem comes into play. Okay, is there a reason? I just discussed the reasoning between, the different portrayals of men and women. I just discussed the reason for that. And is the meek-headed, uber-violent Marcus Phoenix just as bad a stereotype as the big-breasted dumb woman? Yes, it is. Pretty much what Mr. Ace and T has displayed in his comic is two extreme stereotypes that exist in both men. That exist in men, with Marcus Phoenix, and women with the big-breasted dumb woman. You see what I'm saying? Those are two extreme examples of stereotypes in their respective sexes. And yes, both are equally just as bad. They are, and hear me out, they are just as bad to their respective sexes, but they are also just as bad a stereotype to the opposite sex. Yeah, just as bad. And can you think of any other examples, good and bad? Okay, so pretty much I'm gonna spend roughly the next 3 minutes just kind of running through just good examples. You know what? I want to try and push good examples. I don't want to linger on the bad so much. I want to highlight the good examples of of male portrayals in various media. So here we go. Okay, just off the top of my head, good examples. All right, first and foremost, let's talk about movies, and I gotta bring up Denzel Washington, my favorite actor in all of Hollywood, and a lot of his characters are good portrayals of men. Just off the top of my head, Reuben Hurricane Carter from The Hurricane, great portrayal. Malcolm X, great portrayal. John Q, great portrayal. Let's see, any other ones that Denzel did? Okay, bad portrayal. Alonzo Harris from Training Day. That is a bad portrayal that Denzel did. So I got a bad one for you. I love Alonzo Harris. I love that character. One of my favorite characters in all of cinema. But that's a bad portrayal of, of a male. Bad portrayal, okay? Really bad portrayal. So Denzel has done them both. He's done them both. In comic books, like I said, good portrayals. Hell, let's talk about them. Let's talk about DC. You're talking about pretty much, the big stars, Superman, Clark Kent, of course. Batman and Bruce Wayne is often good, but there are some stories where Batman's on his bullshit, so he's a little bit hit and miss. Hal Jordan, Barry Allen, all of those great characters. If you're talking about Marvel, Captain America. Now we're coming to Iron Man, who is pretty much in the same boat as Batman. Yeah, there are times where he is portrayed very well, but there are other times where he is on his bullshit. So be wary of Tony Stark. Hell, and I would even argue the same thing for Thor. There are some stories where Thor is a really good portrayal of, great, strong, male character. And then he's on his bullshit sometimes. Marvel is a bit more murky because, because they like to make their characters, raunchy and, gritty and dark and edgy and shit like that. So they're more, they're a little bit more hit and miss than I'd say DC is, or at least with their biggest characters. Spider-Man, though, that's another good example of a good male portrayal, especially for young readers, for young men. That's another good one. And I mean, and honestly, the list can go on and on, but quite frankly, I don't want to make this video too long. So Mr. Ace NT, thank you for the great topic, really good topic, and so with that being said, I'm wrapping up this week's discussion of the week video. Please, in the comments below, leave suggestions for next week's discussion topic and thumb up the one you want to see me discuss. What to keep an eye out for later this weekend: my Comic Book Hollywood movie review of Daredevil. And with that being said, this has been Larry Williams, OAW Commander-in-Chief. I'm signing off, and until next time, peace.